The thing that I want to talk about today, and this is going to be a relatively quick one, I'm at the lab and yeah, it's going to be a quickie. So, the whole idea of what got you here isn't going to get you there. I think this is a really, really important topic for us to cover or for us to like kind of like touch on. Now, a lot of the time when I talk to people who are kind of like grazing that six-figure mark or who are doing a couple like, six figures, just over six figures, a lot of the time they think I just have to work harder. I just have to double down on the things that I'm already doing in order for me to get to the next level. And a lot of the time that is pretty false. And I want to go over a couple of reasons why that's not actually the case. Number one, that I think is really, really important is to understand what is scalable and what it means, like what your time really should look like. And what I mean by that, and this is something that I do myself all the time, hey guys, is before I make a decision for anything in my business, whether something's being added, especially if something's being added in. Number one, is it unlimitedly scalable? Two, do I enjoy it? Because really, if the answer is no to either one of those things, it's not happening. Because I really don't think that it's something that needs to be accommodated. Or, a lot of the time people will build their businesses off of a bunch of stuff that they think is necessary for them to grow or for them to actually have business. And the truth really is, at the end of the day, if you hate it, you're building a business that you hate. That is like the foundations are essentially built on something that you don't want to do, which is the opposite of what you should be doing in your business. So let's talk a little bit about the idea of what got you here won't get you there. So let's say that you have been prospecting, just as an example, or you've been posting on social media a little bit, you get a couple deals here and there, but most of your business is coming from prospecting or referrals or, door knocking or whatever. So the first question that I would ask, and I've probably mentioned this before, is if you do twice as much of what you're doing now, so let's say you're prospecting for 3 hours a day, which is in a lot of coaching programs and a lot of, business building setups, like that's what they tell you to do. So prospect for 3 hours a day. Now, if you're doing that and say you're making 100 grand or 200 grand or whatever you're making, and you want to double your business in 2021, the question that I would ask is, do you have time to double that and still have enough time, bandwidth, energy to be able to handle twice as many transactions or twice as many clients? The answer to that 99% of the time is no. And so again, we come back to this idea of building your business on the one-to-one doesn't make sense once you hit a certain point. At a certain point, you have to switch to the idea of one-to-many. And one-to-many is much easier to do if you're online. If you're doing a video or you're using social media or you're running content or you're running a psychological funnel or whatever it is that you're doing, you have to be one-to-many. And back in the day, the only way to do one-to-many was to do a seminar because we didn't have the internet, we didn't have these tools. You could do a seminar, and that was the only real way that you were going to be able to at all become a more scalable version of what you had before. So I think it's really important to understand that like that idea or that concept of what you were doing, what got you here won't get you there is really, really important. Now, some of the other mistakes that we see sometime is that, instead of really becoming an expert at something, people do a million different things. I call this shiny object syndrome. I think it's something that in real estate is extremely prevalent, where people do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And they're like, oh, well, it's not working. Well, the truth of the matter really is that like, really, if you want to become a marketer and you want to be really, really proficient at building the business or like the actual generation of the business, that it is really important that you understand the human psychology of everything, because human psychology essentially drives absolutely everything that you're doing in your business. And I think to a certain extent, if you've been successful in real estate, you're already there to a certain point, right? You understand how to talk to people. You're essentially their therapist. You've played that role with probably many hundreds of people. But when you get to the actual marketing part, a lot of the time people kind of put blinders on and they forget, okay, this is what I know. This is what I know. This is what people have told me. And I was interviewed this morning, and this is just something that came out of my mouth and I wanted to share it with you, is, a lot of the time people are like, well, I don't know where my content needs to come from. I don't understand, where it needs to, like what I need to say, what is content, what's not content. I've run out of content ideas. So at the end of the day though, let's be really true. Let's be honest. everything is content. So let's talk about the three major buckets that I've talked about a million times in this group. So your first bucket being authority content. Right. So your authority content is going to be essentially every single question that you have ever been asked. Every time you see a client, every time you meet a prospect, every time you get on a call with someone and they ask you a question, that becomes content. Okay. So like, it's not a matter of like, I don't have enough content. Answer the questions that you're being asked. That's your authority bucket. Then for your personal content, and this is something that I think a lot of people get stuck on, sit down and do a brain dump of your entire life. Where you were born, how much you weighed, where, like, what family you had. Did you have a dog growing up? Were your parents together? What's your favorite memory of childhood? Like, go through and actually just like chronologically write out in point form everything that you can possibly think of about your life. And then, there'll probably be like several hundred little points of everything that you've got in your life. There's your personal content. Okay, that will easily fill a personal bucket. You'll have hundreds of pieces of content. Now, your third bucket, which is going to be case studies, testimonials, PR. If you don't have PR, no problem. But it's something that you should be trying to get and trying to work on because it's going to absolutely explode your business. But before you have that, let's just talk case studies and testimonials. Let's say you don't have a lot of testimonials. You haven't been good about going about them. You haven't been good at asking for them, things like that. Okay, that's fine. Let's move on to case studies. Let's say in your, maybe you've been in the business for several years. You've done 80 transactions in your career. Maybe you're doing 100 transactions a year. I don't know. But every single deal that you have ever done has a story. And that story becomes a case study. So you telling that story becomes that entire content type. And it makes it really, really easy for you to create content and for you to never, ever run out of ideas. So I hope that was really helpful because I think a lot of the time that's the major question is like, where are these content ideas coming from? And yeah, I can give you a million prompts. I have a million prompts. But at the end of the day, the more unique you are and the more you're able to just talk about the things that you already know that people need to know, that's really going to be the key, really, when it comes to social media. Now, if you're retargeting, and we're talking a little bit more advanced from a lead generation and nurturing standpoint, and you're running retargeting campaigns, it's the same thing. Retarget with your content. Allow people to build that know, like, and trust with you so that at the end of the day, when they think real estate and when they think, okay, well, maybe I'm going to be ready now in the next, I don't know, 3 months, 6 months, that you are the first person that they think of. And the reason why you're that first person is because you've hit psychologically at least those 3 buckets. I mean, in the Listings Lab, we teach 9 types of content because it is really important that people hit these psychological barriers. But I think it's also important that if you're just really struggling on social media and that's really where you want to be, double down on these 3 types of content, use the points that I've just made, and it's going to make a really big difference. So Now, I want to go back to that idea of kind of doubling down on what you're already doing. Now, I get people all the time who are like, I'm already posting on my Facebook business page. Organically, that's not going to be the best bang for your buck. It's not going to be the best bang for your time unless you're actually running ads and you're retargeting with that content. You need to be using the platforms where your ideal client, where your niche is going to be the most active. And a lot of the time, that's going to be Facebook on your personal profile and Instagram. So I know that there's this big thing, and I'm going to do a whole other video later this week on Clubhouse and about how it can be used and the pros and the cons, because there are some big cons when it comes to like being a content creator on Clubhouse, which is honestly the reason why I haven't really doubled down on that platform and I'm still going live here instead. So I'll talk about that later this week, but I really, really think that it's important that you understand that the things that you've used to get to 6 figures are not going to be the things that are going to get you to 7 figures. It doesn't matter how hard you want to grind. The idea behind hustling and grinding and suffering to find success is a really old school mentality, and you don't need to do it that way. You can create an audience of one to many. You can have fun in your business. You can have tremendous success if you allow yourself to understand human psychology, to understand the people that you're wanting to attract, and to just be consistent when it comes to creating content and growing those audiences. The other thing too, which is the reason why we teach things the way that we do, is it really does provide kind of life insurance for your business. at any point, you have this audience of people and you have the skill of being able to create content. And it doesn't matter what happens in the market or what happens in your personal life, you will always have that to be able to fall back on. And no matter what happens, you will always be okay. And you will always be able to generate business. Even if you decide to go into a completely other industry or you decide to start a secondary business, having an audience and being an effective content creator will serve you for the rest of your life. Really, this whole internet thing, this social media, this content creation thing, it's not going anywhere. So I think it's really important that people understand that you either get on board or someone else is going to get in front of the people that you're trying to get in front of. And so it's, not to come at it from a scarcity standpoint, but it is really important that you are that you're updating the way that you're doing business and the way that you're going after business. And, being a mediocre content creator isn't enough anymore.